I tried to do a side hustle in building apps on the Facebook platform. This was maybe 10 years ago when, it happened when I was trying to become a PM. And at the same time, I was trying to build my own app on Facebook. And then I got to write my own requirements document, etc. My app didn't go anywhere, but I got to experience the PM work that ended up giving me some talking points when I was interviewing for PM jobs.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, a podcast for all things product, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. Today, we welcome Nancy Chu, who has been a product management veteran with more than a decade worth of product experience with companies like Roku, Meta, and Oracle. She recently started her second innings as a PM Coach and Instructor, where she coaches some of the most influential PMs in the industry. She's also a CMU 2Xer as she completed her undergrad as well as master's education from Carnegie Mellon University. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the show.
Hey, Nancy.
Hello.
Welcome to the Breakdown Podcast. It's good to have you back for another talk.
Yeah, happy to be back.
Hello, Nancy.
Hi, Tilly.
Yes. So
good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you again. So we are pretty honored to have Nancy Chu on our podcast, The Breakdown, which is talking about product management and entrepreneurship, which is hosted by a group of CMU alumni and the CMU students, which is very passionate about product. And also, welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. I have a question on why your show is called The Breakdown.
That's an interesting question. Is because so first of all, the breakdown is a term used very frequently by product manager. So when we are trying to solve a very complicated problem, we always want to break down it into different levels or different layers to help us to understanding what is a fundamental question, what is a fundamental problem, what is something not very urgent. So pretty much very similar to the Elon's the first principle thinking mindset. So that's kind of the first reason. And the second one is we feel like this mindset can be applied both to product management as well as entrepreneurship, as well as you are thinking about any problems or obstacles in your life. So that's kind of why we name it as. Yes.
So basically breaking down complex concepts into simple pieces is what we try to do here. So I think the name suits really well.
Love it.
Yes. So because I believe our audience is still a little bit not very familiar with Nancy. So she's a very experienced product manager and leaders with over a decade worth of product experience. She's working at a lot of companies, amazing company, including large corporate like Meta, Roku, Oracle. So Nancy, do you want to walk us through your journey very briefly?
And yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you for the intro. I'm currently a product management coach, which I started in the month of March-ish. So it's been about 3 months since I decided to go full-time into coaching. Prior to my coaching business, I was director of product at Roku. And before that, I was at Facebook for 6 years. And that was when I became a people manager. And before that, so just going backwards, I was in B2B startups and B2B large enterprise companies like Symantec and Oracle. But my first company was actually not a tech company. It's ExxonMobil. So big oil company. At the time, it was probably either the largest company in the world or the second largest company. I think at one point Walmart was bigger than ExxonMobil, but it was a really, really big company. So that has been my career journey.
Great. I think, yeah, I have to say that you have a very long connection with CMU. You did your bachelor's and as well as master's at CMU. So spent
Yes,
a lot of time in Pittsburgh and on the
I did.
campus. So
Yes.
we'll have some questions related to that at a
Okay.
later part of the podcast. But now I just I was curious how, like, once you graduated, how did your growth trajectory look like within product management, from like a junior level role to a senior and then to a director level role? Could you like just take us through that as well?
Do you mean how much time I spent in each level?
Yeah. And
is that the question?
Yeah, like time, complexity, and then how did you made sure that you got you got promoted every time and rose up those ranks within such a short amount of time, I think.
I don't think I had a super fast in terms of growth. But of course I experienced growth. I was first an engineer, and I think I was in engineering for about 5 years, and I switched into product management.
Okay.
I actually don't really remember how long it was going from product manager to senior product manager. I think it was around 2 to 3 years ish. Okay. And then I was a senior product manager for, I don't remember how long, honestly. Maybe I could do some math. Or maybe I could just look at my LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, just ballpark.
Yeah, maybe another couple of years. And I became a people manager after being a senior PM. So I didn't have the role of a principal product manager. I went from product manager to senior product manager to people manager. And when I joined Facebook, I was IC5, and I became a people manager when I was IC5. So I don't know if you're familiar with how Facebook defines the IC track and the manager track. Do you want me to talk about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
quick explanation would be good.
Sure. So Facebook has 2 tracks. One is for IC and the other is for managers, and they're parallel. So
and IC is individual contributor.
Yeah. So IC5 maps to M0, and IC6 maps to M1, and IC7 maps to M2, and then 8 maps to director. Okay. And these 2 tracks are parallel, meaning if you're IC5 and M0, your compensation is the same. So similarly, if you're IC6 or M1, your compensation is the same. So you don't get paid more just because you're on the manager track. And that is how Facebook has designed its career ladder. So I joined as a 5, moved over to the M track as M0, and then became M1 and then M2. And then after that, I joined Roku as director of product. So that career, the PM, my PM career is about 11 years.
Perfect. Yeah, that's like a great journey so far. Also, like, we were curious to know, during these 11 years, how did you measure your growth as a professional in working in a product oriented environment? Like, did you have any internal metrics, or maybe value systems, or like what really mattered more? Was it like impact, job satisfaction, compensation? Like, did you have any mental models around these things overall?
I would say I was never really systematic about
Okay.
that. But just like a lot of people, I used to measure myself by compensation.
Mhm.
Not saying that is the right way of measuring yourself, but that was the way I measured myself.
Okay.
And I grew in terms of compensation. And anytime when I had a big jump, I would celebrate myself.
Okay.
And I thought about compensation in terms of like, at what point can I make X amount of dollars, or at what point can I double what I was making when I first graduated? So I had these milestones. I definitely had a milestone for when I doubled my starting salary.
Got it.
That I would say that was my one of my main milestones that I was looking forward to. And I was not picky in terms of the product, and I didn't care if the product was not quote unquote sexy.
Okay.
I just wanted to be a product manager. And this was the first half of my career. So the first 5 years, I really did not care about what the product did, because I believed that I could manage any product, no matter how unsexy it might have sounded. But then I also grew as a person, though. As I learned more and as I became a more mature person, I started to feel I should actually have a personal connection with the product.
Okay.
So I started to focus more on that later in the second half of my decade, my career. Makes
sense. Yeah, I think that's a great answer, and thanks for being honest with that too. And I'm glad you brought the concept of sexy, unsexy products, because it's a typical myth within this world. Like, a lot of people really think that when they, start as a product manager, they'll be handed the shiny new product or the main, hot selling product. But there are a lot of products specifically in these big companies, and sometimes you get your hands on with the product that is not so, it's not mainstream, it's supporting some back-end process. So, but those are equally important from a learning standpoint than the shining new thing that they recently released. So I think that's a very good takeaway that could be from this podcast, that like, there'll be times where you're not working on the next big thing.
Yeah, I didn't care about that. I just wanted to be a good PM. And what the product is was very, very secondary to me.
Got it.
Got
Makes
you.
sense.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, so you can like mention that like in the first, you have a very interesting career shift. So before you join Meta, was more kind of like an individual contributor. You raised from junior PM to senior PM, and then when you join like Meta, you become a people manager. So it seems like there will be a like great shift from directly managing the product, like writing the documentations, and shift to the future to like managing people.
Yes.
And also you mentioned that is exactly the milestone you start to care about the product itself. So it seems like these two like things conflict a little bit with each other. So like I was like curious, like how was your transition from managing products and
Which
managing
part did you find the conflict?
like it's so when it seems like you were transferring from managing product to managing people.
Mm-hmm.
So seems like in my understanding, because I'm like still junior, so you cannot, do some very hands-on work, like thinking about the very detailed product solutions, running the sprint for the engineers,
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of executions.
Yeah.
Because you have to, split a lot of times to managing people.
Yes.
So how do you think, or how do you balance this kind of like two things, and how was the shift looks like?
So the best way to learn a job is to do the job. So yes, I became a people manager, but I was quote unquote managing people before becoming a people manager. And managing people is, there's a lot of showing care for people. There's a lot of mentoring other people, and then just helping the team achieve higher level goals and helping the team set goals. So you could do all these things as a PM, as a individual contributor PM. And being a people manager, you kind of just do more of that. So it's not a very sudden shift. The sudden part is just in the title itself, but the actual work is not that different.
Gotcha.
So when we're thinking about a career transition, I would not, I personally would prefer a more gradual transition instead of like flipping on and off type of, it's not a switch. And when there is so becoming a people manager has two sets of criteria. One is there is a business need. And then the two is this is something that you want to do. And like any other goal that we set in life, if you are intrinsically motivated, you would end up doing a better job instead of being motivated by external reasons. So let's say if you want to be a people manager because you think that is the right thing to do, or that it makes you a more attractive candidate for the future, that's actually not a good reason to become a people manager. The good reason is you really enjoy growing other people, right? You really enjoy mentoring people. You really enjoy coaching people, and you really enjoy helping people reach their fullest potential that is defined by the company. So being a people manager, you represent the company now, and you have to understand what the company defines as a good PM, because every company is different. And just because you're a good PM in one company doesn't make you good in another company, because the definition is different. So you have to really enjoy doing that in order to be a good people manager. And the way you learn a new job is to do it, even before you have the title.
Gotcha. Yeah, it is very interesting and very mind-blowing. You said that it's kind of like a gradually growth. But I'm still like, also you mentioned that you have to like has the passion to influence people, to help other people to be the better version of themselves as a manager. So I'm like I have a question. It's like, so do you think it's more like exciting for you to, as a people manager than a product manager? So like, it's because if we stand in the point of the product, so at least for me, when I shape some like great product or feature, it has a
Mhm.
really good metrics feedback, I will feel very, very self fulfillment.
Mhm.
So like how do you think that's this kind of like a tool excitement is different, which makes you more personally, cheer up?
Yeah, the job is very, very different. And I actually thought at one point in time that I really like I would prefer the people management job a lot more than PM job, but I surprised myself when I joined Roku because I was not a people manager at Roku. I was just a very senior PM. I didn't know how I would like it. I actually didn't know that I would like the job. But because I like the product, I had a very open mind, and it turned into the best job I've ever had. I just really, really loved being a senior, like super senior PM at a director level. That did not include any people management. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't accept the job. And so it really surprised myself. And I am actually very glad that I was very open-minded in not taking another job that was managing a team. Because I think a lot of people, if they're already in people management, they would prefer to stay in the manager track. There's a lot of ego in play here as well. People think that if you're a people manager, you are, you're more accomplished in this society. I think we are wired we're conditioned culturally to think that. So some people, like, let's put the market condition aside. If the market is good, I don't think a lot of people managers would want to accept another job that is not a people management job. But because I was very open-minded, I really surprised myself that I ended up enjoying the job way more compared to being a people manager.
Got you. Yeah, I'm very kind of like surprised to hear about it. It's like it seems like it's because from my understanding is like whenever the people become a manager, they will become not very familiar with those like hands-on skill sets. So it
That's a
seems
risk.
like yes, okay, that's a risk.
That's a
So
risk.
how do you manage the gap when you come back to a senior, very, very senior?
So at Facebook, if you manage a small team of PMs, you are still doing ICPM work. So at one point, I was managing a team of 17 people. That was too big. I had no bandwidth to do any IC work. But I was also at one point in time just managing one person or two people. Then in that type of setting, I did have bandwidth to do IC work. And in an environment like Facebook where things can change and business priorities can change, how big your team is can also change because reorgs happen. And in that type of environment, you're forced to adapt and you're forced to do what the company needs you to do. So if the company needs you to manage people and do IC work at the same time, you have to do it. It's actually really, really hard to do. But because I was never in a situation where I could only do people management work for a long period of time, I never really lost the IC chops. And so when I joined Roku as a senior IC, it didn't feel that I was out of touch.
Got you. Yeah, one more follow-up question was like how to manage the IC role and the management role is like we all know kind of like if we want to like level up from a senior PM to let's say staff or principal. start to managing people, it's kind of like it's kind of like a bottleneck for a lot of people.
Which part is the bottleneck?
Like, I'm like thinking like, so actually let me rephrase my question is, when we are still an individual contributor, let's say a senior PM, so what is the best way for us to get the skill side of managing people? Should we kind of like mentoring some people outside the company, or it's kind of like talk to manager to say, oh, I kind of like want to be the body or be the studio like mentors for some coworkers on the team, and kind of like have some metrics if the people you are mentoring performs good and you are good and you can actually take the managed work. So how to gradually, make this change?
If there are people in your company who you can mentor, I would definitely choose to mentor internal people instead of going outside to look, because then your manager wouldn't know how you are as a mentor. And there's, of course, also summer interns that you could mentor / manage. And you have to think from the manager's perspective. When there is an opening for another manager position, they would be looking out for candidates. And if they already see you doing some of the job, they would feel very natural to also consider you, as well as external candidates who might have more people management experience. And it just means they have to see you do that for a while before they could feel that you could do the job. That's why I stress to learn a job, you have to do it, even without the title.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for giving such detailed answers on that topic. I think that was the topic I was also personally very curious about. This brings us to like, I think it's a good segue to the next set of questions that we thought would be good to ask you. Like, personally curious. So you also mentioned that your like your opportunity at Roku and the work you did was very interesting, and one of the highlights of your career. So why did you decide to put a break on your PM journey and then start a coaching career? What was the motivation behind that shift, and was that an easy decision overall?
It was not. It was not a split decision. It was, again, a very gradual shift. I was part of Roku's layoff, but a lot of people kind of just jump into job search mode. They might take a week off or a month off, but eventually they would jump into job search mode. I did too, because that is a very natural thing to do. And because I've been working for 15, 16 years, it's muscle memory to just find a new job. That's all I know. I have never started a business ever in my whole life. But what happened was I had a trip planned that was after the layoff. I had a trip planned, and it was a 6-week trip to go home to see my parents in Taiwan. And I knew I wasn't going to start the job search before that trip. And I just wanted to make the most out of that trip. And I actually felt quite thankful to not have to work from Taiwan. I was kind of worried about how to handle time zone differences, etc. And so I made the most out of the trip. There was no work, but I had an opportunity to coach someone. It was a very serendipitous opportunity. What happened was I met someone on the internet, someone I didn't know before, who wanted to who wanted to improve their English in a professional setting. This person is also from Taiwan.
Mhm.
And I saw this person's post on a Facebook group and I responded. I said, oh, I could definitely help you with English in a professional environment. But I can only do it for a couple of weeks because I'm going on this long trip. And turns out that person is a PM at Facebook, which totally surprised me. But it was a very pleasant surprise because I became the perfect teacher for that person. So I started with just helping him improve his English in a professional setting. And it turned into coaching because he used to be a startup founder who then sold his company. Then he joined Facebook as a PM. It's an extreme shift in how someone works. So as a startup founder, you make the shots, you make all the decisions, you're the founder. But then you join Facebook. Now you're one of 1,000 PM. And now you have 10 layers above you. You can't just make the call. You have to go through layers of approval. You're always making a case. You're always presenting to leadership team. So that is a completely different culture for him. And I was helping him navigate through that. So on the surface level, he felt that the English was a bottleneck, but it wasn't just the English that was a bottleneck. It was a mindset that needed to shift, to go from a startup founder type of culture to a mega tech company kind of culture. And in a company where you're 1 out of 1,000 PM, you are forced to work with a lot of other teams too. So how do you work with other teams while standing out? Because, everyone wants to get a promotion. So I was helping him understand the career expectations at a company like Facebook, how to show up and portray yourself as the next level PM. So it turned into that type of career growth type of coaching. And then I went on my trip to Taiwan, and I said, hey, I'm going on my trip now, so I can't take calls anymore. But he still wanted to take more calls. So we continue this coaching relationship even when I was in Taiwan. And then I came back, then I started to look for a new job. And then I was preparing for interviews at the same time as growing my coaching business. Because at this time, I was getting more and more clients. I wasn't just working with one client, right? So because I started to be more serious about my coaching business because it feels really fulfilling. It's kind of related to why I became a people manager and why I enjoyed it. It's the mentoring aspect that makes it feel really fun for me. So I continued to do more of the coaching. And then I just felt this huge resistance in my body when it was time to prepare for interviews. So in an interview setting, you have to sell yourself as a candidate. In a coaching environment, you have to sell yourself as a coach. You're just selling. You're still selling yourself. You're just selling in different ways. But I really enjoyed selling myself as a coach a lot more than selling myself as a PM candidate. And I just kept doing more of the things that I like doing, and I did less and less of the things I didn't like doing. So in the job search, of course, you have to put your resume together. You have to put your LinkedIn profile, like polish it or whatever. In the coaching business, I had to build a website that talked about who I am as a coach. So again, you're working on your personal brand on the internet, but building my coaching website was so much more interesting than polishing my LinkedIn to look like a qualified PM candidate. So I decided to just follow what felt good in my body, which led me down this path of doing coaching. So it's not I'm going to be a coach now. It was, again, another gradual shift that took many months.
That's quite a story. And yeah, like I'm fascinated to hear that. Like it happened by chance, but then it just slowly, intuitively evolved over time.
Yeah, it definitely evolved.
Yeah, that's great. One quick question that comes to my mind. now you've been doing this for a couple of months now. Do you
Mhm.
see yourself going back to the workforce at some stage, or do you want to stick to it and grow it further?
I want to stick to coaching if I can. Like in the
Okay.
perfect world, I want to
Okay.
be a coach. I don't want to be a PM.
Perfect. That's good. So from a people's manager to a people's coach. That's nice. I think so. Another question around this is, so I think you by this time you have mentored multiple senior level executives and also I think junior level PMs in your coaching journey so far. Can you share like one or two like most profound learnings that really stood out sometime during your experience as a coach?
Most of the coaching work is around mindset. Actually, I want to ask Tilly because Tilly and I had a very casual conversation.
Okay.
Tilly, do you remember what we talked about and the mindset shift that happened in just like one conversation? And it didn't take very long.
Yes.
What was that like from your perspective?
I think it's overall it's very mind changing. Like kind of like you can use like a one or two like question to change some others people's mind or encourage people. I was literally encouraged by NSA like several weeks ago where I was like turning between different offers as my first full-time job. And also I, as an international student, I also have some other, annoying like factors I need to consider. So and also I'm like I'm personally really into AR, VR and AI. But like currently it's so boomed, it's so high, it's so hard to like get into the AI company. So I was like worried about, so if I'm not like in open AI, let's say right now, so does it mean that I cannot shift or get into AI domain forever? And then she was just asking me like using her like experience, like she was starting from a traditional large oil company and then they shifted to like digital world, digital software career. And she was just like, I don't remember exactly the question she asking me, but it's just one question.
It was one question.
Yeah. So do you remember?
It was, so most of people are blocked by their own opinions of the world and blocked by their viewpoint of the world. And most of it is stemming from fear. And I think it's just because we're conditioned that way. So in Tilly's example, it was, if I don't do AI now, what if I can't? What if I can never do it later in the future? And then my question, because I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but my question was, what makes you think that? Like, which part of that sentence is true? And then we started to analyze what is fact, what is factual, and what is false, and what is fear. So if you could get into AI now as a new grad with limited experience, what makes you think you cannot get into AI a year later or 2 years later or 3 years later? Wouldn't the future version of Tilly be even more attractive as a PM candidate compared to the current version of Tilly? So if the current version of Tilly can get into AI, what makes you think the future version of Tilly cannot? Then that itself is a mindset shift. So now we're thinking, so then it really doesn't matter what I do now because I could always do AI in the future because now there's less fear.
Got it.
And so that question was maybe a 30-second question, but it caused you to think of yourself and the world differently. Then you're more able to take action and feel, more confident in that action that you take. So most of the coaching is like this. So it actually has very little to do with tactical product management.
Great. That's interesting to know. So it's less about understanding what the business model canvas is or what the feature prioritization models are, but more about like, mindset and the way to
Mhm.
look at things, the way to understand problems and asking the right questions.
Yes, and also mindset affects tactics that come afterwards. So
Okay.
with the right mindset, then, okay, let's do tactical work. And this is where, okay, now if we're going to work on product strategy, or now we're going to work on a prioritization framework, we could do it, but the mindset is in the right place.
Wow. That's great. I think I really need to sign up on your website, Nancy. I think you convinced me to do that.
Yes.
So
So yeah, I really appreciate that talk with Nancy. And also like following up with our previous talk, I also have another question. Is like, so as PMs, we are always multitask.
Mhm,
Like a lot of PMs are very ambitious type people. So
mhm.
literally all the friends, a lot of people, lots of my friends, they're doing product management, they're doing some side hustle, they're a YouTuber, they're a content
Mhm.
creator, or they are doing side projects. So
Yeah.
I'm always confused by this like trajectory. So when we are young, let's say when we're in 20s, we just start our career. So is that which one is a better strategy? Let's say you just all in your whole full-time work, or at least put 90% of your energy and be the rock star PM in your company, or we can do a good PM in the company, and at the side we do side project, we do influencer, we do coaching. So which is probably will give us a compound interest, which is very trendy term lately. So like from your own perspective, if you look back,
Mhm.
like which strategy do you think is better for for people just start their career or in the midway of their career?
Well, the strategy depends on what you want. Like, what is it you want? What's important to you? Is it trying a bunch of different things? And what is your ultimate goal? So for me, I used to, I tried to do a side hustle in building apps on the Facebook platform. This was maybe 10 years ago when, oh yeah, it happened when I was trying to become a PM. And at the same time, I was trying to build my own app on Facebook. And then I got to write my own requirements document, etc. My app didn't go anywhere, but I got to experience the PM work that ended up giving me some talking points when I was interviewing for PM jobs. What I wanted was to gain experience in doing PM work when I was an engineer. And so I was doing this side thing. So that was a very specific goal. And actually, in one of my interviews, it was VP of engineering who was asking, what happened to your app? I said, it didn't go anywhere. And he said, what was your goal? I said, my goal was to do the PM work for the app. So it actually didn't matter to me that the app didn't go anywhere. I launched it. I didn't really grow it, but that's totally fine because the goal is just write requirements doc and pretend I'm the PM, right? And then a few years later, I decided I want to be a blogger. And this was before YouTube became very big. Then I became a pretty established beauty blogger for a period of time. And then I got tired of doing it. So I stopped. And then a few years later, I decided I'm going to create YouTube videos. So me doing blogging and me becoming a YouTuber isn't because, oh, I just want to be a big blogger, or I just want to be a popular YouTuber. It was because at that time I was really into skincare products and beauty products. And I was just super interested in it. And so blogging is like the after the fact. The main focus is I'm obsessed with makeup, and so I'm gonna blog about makeup. Until I wasn't interested in makeup anymore, so I stopped the blog. And then a few years after that, I got pregnant at the time, and I wanted to give my daughter a gift. And I decided that gift was going to be a documentation of her life during my pregnancy and during the first year of her life. And because I wanted to document it, I decided, okay, I'm going to put it on YouTube. And that journey was very interesting because one of my videos went viral, and it has over 12 million views. So my YouTube channel became pretty popular as a baby channel, until I got tired of it and I didn't enjoy it anymore, and I stopped. So basically the story here is like, you have to know what you're going after. So for me, whether I'm a blogger or YouTuber, it's not because I want to be a YouTuber. It's because the interest is somewhere else, and then the platform became like
she's
a
here.
Yeah, so she's not a baby anymore. Now she's going to first grade.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. So maybe a month ago, I restarted my YouTube channel, but now it's on PM coaching topics. But it's because I am passionate about coaching and I'm passionate about product management. That's why I now have videos on YouTube. But it's not the other way around.
So it seems like more following heart, following passion, and like others say, oh, just buy product.
Yeah. Also because now we're talking about tactics, right? The tactics of being a blogger or the tactics of being a podcaster or YouTuber, it's a lot, right? It's a lot of work. You have to process your content, and then you have to schedule it. You have to create posts. So if your interest is not aligned with the content, then all the work associated with it would just be too much and not worth it.
Yes, I guess this is really answered my question. Is like, so yeah, we're also talking about like, should a PM, what does a secondary, inning looks like for a PM? Is that a venture capitalist or a founder or an influencer? So I guess all the answers for this question is articulate or figure out your goal, and then follow your passion and insist on it.
It should start with self-reflection and self-awareness of what you like, and just follow your heart.
Great.
Perfect.
Cool. I think this brings us towards the end. And as we promised, there's a CME question, which is definitely the last question of this episode. But before we get to that, do you have any recommendations about books, blogs that you frequently visit? Could be related to product management, could be related to life in general, could be something that you really like to read. So any recommendations for the audience?
If you don't follow Shreya's Doshi, you should.
Okay, perfect. I do follow him, and yeah, he's great.
Yeah. And the reason why he is so memorable is because if you pay attention, he talks about mindset.
Yeah.
In addition to tactics, but most people kind of just want to focus on the tactics, but it's not going to be effective if your mindset is not what it should be.
Got it.
Yes. And also, yeah, following this question, we also, because seems like you are a very, like you live in a life with a lot of wisdom and very, self-awareness, like men's side. So like, do you have a personal motto, like one sentence or two sentence, which accompany you or you deeply believe in your life?
So I didn't used to be this way. But in the last, I would say I had a very rough time. I faced a very tough time when I was at Facebook a few years ago. And because it was very hard for me just on an emotional level, I became more and more spiritual. And I started to look into meditation and the meaning of life and life purpose. And that's where I started to reflect a lot. It's also when I learned about meditation. So now that I'm on this spiritual journey, I fully believe that every single human being is in this world for a reason. And we literally are here to have the life that we want. And so we shouldn't limit ourselves because of fear. I feel fear is just a learning process, and that everyone can have the life they want. And the first step is to recognize what is in your heart versus what is fear, and just go after what you want, because our desire is within us for a reason, just like why the reason why we are here is for a reason. And so when you take an action, the first step is always look inward first and then perform the action.
Yeah, I love it. I really love the concept about the desire, fear, and love in our heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. It also makes me remember, I think, a quote that I read from, I think it was Nassim Taleb, that courage is the highest virtue, which is sort of like the same thing that you said, but in a like an opposite way. So definitely,
Yeah,
I think that's so beautiful.
I love that because, since I became a coach, I no longer make the same amount of money as I used to. And I remember in the beginning of the conversation, I used to measure myself by compensation.
Oh, yes.
Right. But now I'm a coach. I make very little money, but does it make me less worthy of a person? Definitely not. Right. And being a coach also allows me to touch people's hearts way more than being a product manager. You can still touch hearts as a product manager, but it's a completely different scale. And then I was thinking, if compensation doesn't define my worth, then I don't have to pay so much attention to compensation anymore. I could just pay attention to the impact that is not measured by compensation, right? The impact is I'm touching hearts. And, then I'm thinking, why do I, at one point, I was thinking compensation is my worth. But that's because how I was raised. Culturally, we believe, oh, if you make a lot of money, you must be really awesome. Like in our generation, that's what we believe. But then I look at my daughter, what do I want her to believe? Do I want her to see me as a PM who makes good PM salary? Or do I want her to see me as someone who has the courage to go after a dream? And then I decided to focus on the latter.
Yep, that's so beautiful. A really like definitely a takeaway for me from this talk. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, Tilly, you want to take the last question? I'm all ears for this one.
Yeah, okay. But you can like reveal the secret question like ahead of time.
What's
So
the
it's
secret
not
one?
no, it's like we want to ask what is your favorite memory from CMU because you have you have graduated like 10
Mhm.
years for 10 years.
Yeah.
But we are actually still in Pittsburgh. So we
Yeah.
are still fresh, like very, in this environment. Like we are wondering what's your like memorable stuff or story here.
Yeah, so before I moved to Pittsburgh, I lived in Hawaii, and I have never seen snow before moving to Pittsburgh. So
Okay.
I remember very, very well the first day when it started to snow. It was in the middle of a class, and I looked out the window and it was snowing. And
Right.
this was also before cell phones, right? So we didn't have
Okay.
any distractions at the time. There was no cell phone.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
hard
so
to imagine, but yeah.
I went to CMU in 2001 when I was a freshman. That was before the iPhone came out.
Okay.
Yeah, so no cell phone, so no distraction. Is really just look at the teacher or look at the window, or I guess look at your notebook.
Okay.
So I just looked at the window the whole time. I was not listening. I was just looking at snow. And then as soon as class ended, I just ran outside. I was like, oh my God, this is snow. And I just stayed there for for a few minutes, and just really got to know what snow felt like. And then it got old really quickly though. Then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm done with snow. Like I don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
I know.
Wow.
We have like a pretty long winter in Pittsburgh. Yeah. That's
For
kind of like why I'm always on a mission to fly out of Pittsburgh when it's winter break.
I hear you. Yeah. I can't go back to the East Coast.
Yeah. It just feels good at the first few days, but then it's a mess and it delays. Like
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
always late when it snows to classes.
Yes. I remember falling on ice because it was so
Oh,
slippery. And then after a while, it just turns into slush, and it's
yeah.
dirty and just, it's not pretty
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
the first
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, that's great. That's really nice. A really beautiful story. Great. I think this brings us to the end of the conversation. It was again like pleasure talking to you, Nancy.
It's
Thanks
my
for
pleasure.
being on the podcast. And yeah, I think pretty good conversation. I'm sure like me and Tilly got to learn a lot of things from this conversation, and I hope the audience also gets to learn a lot of things